Welcome into the Cowboys Report, made possible today by Roan. We'll tell you all about their great products later on in today's show. But you can get 20% off by using promo code ChatSports over at roan.com/chatsports. Trade rumors buzzing on today's show with roster cut-down day on the verge of being here. That's tomorrow. And like all NFL teams, what the Cowboys will do first and foremost is shop around some of their key players, see if they can get a trade for a guy they're going to cut and don't want to have or don't think they'll get to their practice squad. First up is Will Grier. As I'm sure we all know, the Cowboys have informed Grier that he will not be on the team following the Trey Lance trade. Now, he impressed in the preseason finale against the Raiders. And the ideal outcome here, even though it's maybe not the most likely, is that performance convinces some team they got to go trade for him now instead of potentially having to convince him to sign with them. He is a vested veteran. He would not go through waivers. That is the ideal outcome. We'll go in depth in terms of how likely it is. But as I mentioned, roster cutdown day is tomorrow. So make sure you are subscribed. YouTube.com/@CowboysTV. Free Cowboys videos every single day and maybe even multiple times per day today if we get some roster cuts news, so make sure you are subscribed. The Cowboys quarterback room now looks like this. Dak is your franchise guy, Cooper Rush is your veteran bus driver, and Trey Lance is your developmental upside piece. You're not going to carry four. Probably not going to carry four on the practice squad because, well, you'd want Lance to get whatever extra reps that aren't really going to be available that much. Grier impressed against the Raiders. By far, his greatest performance since donning an NFL jersey, regular season, and certainly better than his preseason performances. 29 of 35, 305 yards, 53 rushing yards, 4 total touchdowns, 2 of which came on the ground. The biggest issue for Grier is that one game, and the Cowboys are trying to trade him, one game does not override everything else. We have gone from, hey, Grier's not the guy, to maybe he should be quarterback too, which we'll go more in depth on, by the way, here in a little bit. I've seen those comments as well. In the course of his preseason career, Grier has been, he hasn't been that great. He was terrible in the brief appearance we saw out of Grier back with the Carolina Panthers, as the Panthers, until they got Bryce Young and moved on from Cam Newton, in between, they had been shuffling all these different guys, even bringing back Cam Newton at one point, seeing if they could be the answer there. Grier has not been impressive outside of that last performance against the Raiders. I think that significantly brings down the trade value. So prediction time. Can the Cowboys find a trade partner for Will Grier? Y for yes, N for no. It's going to be today's pinned comment, so if the ad comes here on YouTube, take advantage of it. Head down there and let me know. I would say there's an outside shot you're able to trade Will Grier. I do think he will be on a team in some capacity, practice squad or otherwise, but I don't know if there's going to be a bidding war that would help you, and teams are trying to fill needs. Is Grier a clear-cut superstar QB3? Not really. We've gone from a week ago after the last preseason game. We all saw the comments. We all agreed. People were like, get rid of Grier. He's bad. I don't want to see him anymore. Imagine now if the game order was flipped. If Will Grier played like he did in week 3, if he did that in week 1, maybe you wouldn't be trading for Trey Lance in that scenario, although I think it was more of a Lance interest for the Cowboys. And if Grier ended the last 2 games on a poor note, would keeping him, would being a talking or trading him or getting a trade piece back for him, would that be very likely? Or is it just the recency bias coming into play from that perspective? I would love to find a trade partner for Will Grier. That would be great. I am cheering for him to find a new NFL team. I know he will in some capacity, but I'm not going to get my hopes up. Although, Josh Dobbs went for a 5th, so anything's possible from that perspective, but my expectations are low. Now, my expectations are high when I'm wearing Roan gear. Men's closets were due for a radical reinvention, and Roan has stepped up to the challenge. Their commuter collection is the most comfortable, breathable, and flexible set of products known to man, and this is why. Roan helps get you ready for any occasion with their commuter collection. I'm rocking one of their polos from that collection today, but they also have pants, dress shirts, quarter zips, and polos. Whatever you're doing, working, going to and from work, dinner out, drinks out, going to the golf course like I like to do, Roan has something for you. You guys can get 20% off your order at roan.com/chatsports. The commuter collection can get you through any workday and straight into whatever comes next. Head to roan.com/chatsports and use promo code chatsports to save 20% off your entire order. That's 20% off your entire order when you go to RHONE.com/chatsports and use code chatsports. Find your corner office comfort today. Links in the comments and in the description. We shall stick with the quarterback conversation. Here is some, and this is more speculation, the heavy.coms of the world than, the insiders, so to speak. They have pushed to maybe keep Grier over Cooper Rush. Maybe that is the way you go in terms of balancing your quarterback room. The idea then is you could get a draft pick back for Cooper Rush, recoup draft capital, would make Grier week 1 quarterback 2 because Trey Lance will not be ready from that perspective. But the Cowboys trust Rush as their veteran backup. He filled in about as well as you could have hoped for in terms of the results when Dak went down. Although, make no mistake, the offense was not nearly as good as it was with Prescott. But, some people don't watch the games or don't watch it closely enough from that perspective. But there are issues. Even though I think you make an argument Grier is more talented than Rush, doesn't mean he is a better quarterback for what this team is looking for in terms of being a stabilizing factor. The contract is also an issue here. He has a $2.13 million cap hit. That is not that bad at all. But the Cowboys save $0 in the event that they were to cut Cooper Rush. They save 1.5 with a trade. So there's no incentive whatsoever to release Rush. They don't save any money. They would not. It's not on the cards for Dallas. And I would have my doubts if there's any real trade value. I don't think you're going to have much, if anything, for Will Grier. And I don't think maybe a late day 3 pick, if that, would be justifiable enough for the way the Cowboys view Rush versus Grier. Because they announced that battle was over. I don't think one game is going to change it. Now, 2 teams had interest in Rush in free agency, was the Bengals and the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, neither team, with the 2-year, under $6 million deal that Cooper Rush got, neither team made a big offer to be like, yeah, we got to get Cooper Rush on this roster. I think that is the best indication you have of the value for Cooper Rush and the value for Will Grier. Remember, he was cut last season, and they both made their way to the practice squad. So pick a quarterback. WG for Will Grier or CR for Cooper Rush. The safe space to vote. So go do so in the comments section. We will move now to one Kelvin Joseph, a.k.a. Bossman Fat. Very interesting note of Michael Gelkin mentioning if they don't find a trade partner for Joseph or Cook, they'll be released. I think that was more of they'll always look to trade the guy first, and less of hey, they're going to have a real trade offer or whatever. Now, Kelvin Joseph has had a very strong preseason. It is a low bar to clear, make no mistake, but this is by far the best Kelvin Joseph has looked in his NFL career. Now, that might not be enough to keep his spot on the 53-man roster for reasons we'll get into here, but he's played really well. He has broken up as many passes as he has allowed completions this year. 2 of 8, 20 yards, 0 TDs, 2 PBUs. He's been awesome. The move to nickel corner has been an overwhelmingly positive move for Kelvin Joseph. But that position is not as valued or needed with what the Cowboys have on the roster. For starters, the Jordan Lewis situation is going to play a role here. Both ESPN and the Dallas Morning News, Archer Gelkin, those 2 guys don't really miss as reporters have said the Cowboys might elect to bring Jordan Lewis off of the PUP list before the season. If that is the case, Jordan Lewis is predominantly a nickel corner. That does not provide flexibility for Kelvin Joseph, who the team does not view as an outside guy anymore and have played him only in the nickel. Think about it this way. You're juggling this quarterback roster, right? Trayvon Diggs, Stephon Gilmore are your outside corners. DaRon Bland is your nickel. Bland can play on the outside if needed. If Jordan Lewis is there and Israel Mukwamu's on your roster, those guys are nickels when they play corner. Now, maybe they try Lewis on the outside as added depth, but your pecking order would go Lewis, Mukwamu, Joseph at nickel behind Bland. You're not going to carry a fourth option at nickel when Mukwamu can do it and safeties can do it as well. You would want an outside corner to back up Diggs, Gilmore, / Bland as needed, and that would probably be Eric Scott over Kelvin Joseph, would be my guess, with Deshaun Wright maybe beginning the year on injured reserve, by the way. Now, I might actually lean more towards saving some money, moving on from Jordan Lewis, or keeping him on the PUP list, allowing to have some flexibility there, because his foot was a really bad injury, by the way. And maybe giving Boss Man Fat one more year, or maybe you pick Jordan Lewis over C.J. Goodwin as your core special teamer. I think we've seen a growth in that area, that for a team that is stuck by Kelvin Joseph through all of the trials and tribulations he's had, bailing once he starts to show something is maybe not the route I would go. So what would you guys do with Kelvin Joseph? K for keep him, T for trade him, or C for cut him? We'll wrap up with some trench play conversation here. The Cowboys have depth along the defensive line, and it's a good problem to have, but at the moment, Dallas has more rosterable players than they have actual available roster spots along the defensive line. At edge rusher, it's fairly deep, right? It's Micah, it's Sam Williams, it's Tank Lawrence, it's Dorrance Armstrong, it's Dante Fowler, it's Isaiah Land, a guy I would like to get on the active roster. I don't know if that's the path they'll go. Defensive tackle, you have Mozzie Smith, Jonathan Hankins, you have Oso Odigizua, Chauncey Golston / Junior Fehoko playing inside and out. So all of a sudden, you got too many bodies when you consider Dorrance Armstrong, who has not played at all in the preseason and has had a injury that's been fairly minor, and I do wonder if maybe there's more going on and maybe Dallas could be shopping Armstrong secretly behind the scenes. He's one of your top trade options along the defensive line. Neville Gallimore has been much better in the preseason. He has outplayed Quinton Bohanna, who did not play very well against the Raiders, I regret to inform you. I think Gallimore's above Bohanna. Both guys might not make the roster if they go deep. Dante Fowler, I think the Cowboys like. Also, could be your fun dark horse option of releasing as your vested veteran. He already got a signing bonus. That does not change. No guaranteed base salary. Release him, bring him back on the exact same deal. Now, the Cowboys are not going to keep all four of those guys. That is not in their cards. The math is not mathing there. So what I would like to do is find offensive line help, or maybe even some linebacker help for the Cowboys. But it all does depend on who is available for this organization. Who can you find in a trade market that has already seen trades involving Josh Jones, involving Kevin Dotson? So some names to monitor who could also be cut, but these are somewhat notable names in a not good market because most good offensive linemen are simply not available. Ben Cleveland has not been good for the Ravens, but he's got some experience with third-round pick. Same with Kendrick Green, was maybe even worse than Ben Cleveland. He can play some center. He's got some flexibility there. Avion Collins, former Cowboy, could bring him back. I think he was out of Josh Ball down the stretch last year. Jackson Carman is a former second-round pick, although he's bad. He might still make it in Cincinnati, but he's been a disaster so far. Yosh Neiman, by the way, for the Packers. Green Bay does a good job with their offensive linemen, so I wouldn't mind if that was the route that they chose to go. But he's kind of maybe their 9th or 10th lineman, and I think they end up keeping 9 there. So I got my eyes on offensive line. We'll see if one becomes available. If they do, we'll have you covered. Make sure you guys subscribe to us here at the Cowboys Report.